Compton, which is the blood side of Compton, is having a moment. And that's because they're related to Kendrick Lamar, who is arguably the most significant rap artist in the world.
Compton, I could have easily came out and said, I did this, I did that. I a whole bunch of out of front, just giving out fact where I'm from.
You know the crazy thing about Kendrick, bro? My first encounter with him, he thought I was somebody else, bro. He low-key tried to press me.
Who?
Kendrick Lamar.
Like many artists, Kendrick Lamar, known early on as K-Dot, has experienced several significant transitions in his lifestyle and environment. Starting off as this innocent, good kid in a rough and dangerous city, he eventually became affiliated with one of the most notorious Pyro gangs in Compton, California. Fast forward to today, he's a global superstar with an impressive 17 Grammy Awards under his belt, the latest being for his album Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, which won Rap Album of the Year.
First and foremost, I want to thank my family for giving me the courage, you know, and the vulnerability to share these stories and share my truth with this album.
Despite his success, there's always been this persistent question among his fans. Did Kendrick really gangbang? Was he actually from the West Side Pyro? And did he catch a body during his younger days? Let's dive in and see what's what. K-Dot is often seen surrounded by a crew filled with a lot of reputable blood members. This can be clearly observed in several of his music videos and interviews, including a notable one with Noisy, where he takes them through his personal experiences growing up in Compton. In that video, you can see multiple blood members in the background, some even stepping up for interviews.
Compton, I could have easily came out and said, I did this, I did that. I a whole bunch of in front, just giving out fact where I'm from.
In Los Angeles County, especially in places like Compton, it's almost seen as a necessity for artists to have some gang affiliation for protection. Just look at Chris Brown and Soulja Boy, both have ties to gangs for that reason. To really get to the bottom of these rumors about Kendrick, we need to go back to his early days in Compton. Kendrick Lamar's upbringing sheds a lot of light on his connections to the West Side Pyro and Compton in general. Kendrick, born and raised in Compton, ended up in the city almost by accident. Back in 1984, 3 years before Kendrick was born, his father Kenny Duckworth was allegedly involved with the Gangster Disciples, a notorious Chicago-based street gang known for their deadly ways and numerous enemies. These guys were hardcore with snipers on the rooftops in Chicago. Imagine trying to navigate through all those tall maze-like buildings. It was basically a death sentence. Kenny and his wife knew they needed a fresh start, so they decided to leave. After an ultimatum from his wife, they hopped on a train from Chicago to California. They thought they were leaving behind a life of constant danger, heading to the Sunshine State for a better life. They hoped for good weather, a new community, and the glamour that California was known for. They got all that, but not exactly how they imagined. When they arrived in Southern California in the 1980s, the area was a complete war zone due to the massive gang activity. Sure, they got the sunny weather, but the communities they ended up in were infested with violent gangs. The glamour was there too, but in the neighborhoods they found themselves in, the only thing being glamorized was gang life. In a Rolling Stone interview, Kendrick Lamar opens up about his tough upbringing in Compton. He recalls how his Auntie Tina helped his parents out by putting them up in a hotel until they could find their footing. Kendrick's mom landed a job at McDonald's, and after 3 years of living out of cars, motels, and even a local park, they finally scraped together enough money for their first apartment. That's where Kendrick was born. Growing up, Kendrick's family was on welfare and lived in Section 8 housing. He also figured out pretty early on that his dad was still hustling in the streets to make ends meet. Plus, several of his mom's brothers were Compton Crips. So from the moment he was born, Kendrick was surrounded by gang warfare and violence. Whether he liked it or not, he had to navigate through all this chaos just to survive. In that same interview, Kendrick paints a vivid picture of his childhood. He talks about a time when he was riding with his dad down Bullis Road and saw people running and smoke rising in the distance. They stopped at an auto zone and his dad went in and came out with 4 tires. Kendrick knew his dad didn't buy them, so he was puzzled about what was going on. He later realized he was right in the thick of the 1992 riots, witnessing the chaos firsthand without even knowing it at the time.
Way for people to vent their frustration.
And yet, what we have seen seemed more a colorblind orgy of wrecking and taking. What has happened to people?
The tension in Los Angeles during the riots was intense. Media coverage was non-stop, showing just how wild things got in the city. Kendrick and his family saw it all unfold in front of them.
God I never seen.
parents teaching children to steal. If I had done that, my mom would beat the stuffings out of me if she had caught me stealing. But these parents teaching their kids to steal, I can't understand it.
He recalls getting home that day and hearing his dad and uncles talking about grabbing whatever they could from stores. He thought they were planning to rob places, which was a real eye-opener for him. As he watched the news and heard about the Rodney King beating, things started to click. He asked his mom, "So the police beat up a black man and now everybody's mad?" That's when he began to understand the deep-rooted issues of police brutality, not just in LA, but across America. But that was just the beginning of Kendrick's harsh education about the world he was living in. He witnessed his first at just 5 years old. He describes how it happened right outside his apartment building. A guy dealing drugs was shot point blank with a shotgun. Seeing that kind of violence at such a young age had a profound effect on him. It made him realize that this wasn't just something he'd see occasionally. It was something he might have to get used to. But that wasn't the only Kendrick witnessed. Just 3 years later, while walking home from Ronald E. McNair Elementary School in Compton, Kendrick saw his second murder. This time it happened at Tams Burgers on Central and East Rosecrans, just 6 blocks from where he grew up. He remembers it vividly. 8 years old, walking home from McNair Elementary School. Dude's in the drive-thru ordering his food and a homie ran up, boom boom, smoked him. Tams Burgers has always been a popular spot for locals in Compton, but it's also notorious for being a hotspot for violence. It's the same place where Suge Knight ran over and Terry Carter in 2015.
A new and disturbing video that will impact the murder case against media mogul Suge Knight. The video obtained by TMZ shows the January 29th incident where Knight's truck apparently runs over the two men.
But Tams isn't the only place with a reputation for violence. From the 1980s all the way up to the mid-2000s, Compton was known as one of the most dangerous areas in California. When Kendrick was 8, the same age he witnessed his second the murder rate in Compton was a staggering 81.5 per 100,000 people. To put that in perspective, New York City, which is often thought of as a dangerous place, had a rate of just 2.2 per 100,000 people around that time. Even Chicago, which has a modern reputation for high crime rates, had a rate of 8.52 per 100,000 in 2015. These days, Compton is not as wild as it used to be, but it's still definitely not a place to mess around in. There are multiple reasons why Compton has such a reputation for violence, but the biggest one is money, or rather the lack of it. Even now, the per capita income in this part of Los Angeles is just over $15,000, which is a far cry from the $58,000 US average. So, for Kendrick Lamar, the violence was an unrelenting part of his life growing up. When he was just 15, Kendrick got beaten down right in front of his mom at the Avalon swap meet. Another time, his mom found a bloody hospital gown among his clothes. Kendrick tried to be secretive about it, but he eventually confessed that he had been in the ER with a young friend who got shot. There was also a moment when his mom, Paula, found him curled up and crying in the front yard. She thought he was mourning his grandmother's death, but Kendrick later admitted he had just been shot at. Things hit a real low point when the police knocked on their door accusing Kendrick of being involved in a neighborhood incident. His parents, fed up and scared for his safety, kicked him out. After that, Kendrick went to stay with friends who were even deeper into street life, many of them already being Westside Pyru members. Even at an early age, Kendrick was heavily involved in making music. He dropped his first mixtape, Young in Charge, on June 17, 2003. This mixtape caught the ear of a lot of locals, including his first official label, Top Dog Entertainment. Although he released another tape titled Training Day, which also showcased his musical talents, the streets still had a strong hold on him. We know Kendrick was surrounded by gangs, but let's dive deeper to figure out if he was actually a gang member. Some of his closest friends were Westside Pyru members like Lil L, Big Hitter J3, and G Weed, who are known members and fellow rappers. You can spot them in many of his earlier videos from his Good Kid, Mad City album, and even in more recent videos like Humble, King Kunta, and Family Ties. Clearly, they're still very close to Kendrick.
This is Lil L, who's one of Kendrick Lamar's best friends, who he grew up with, who's also a Pyru gang member, is otherwise known as the Bloods.
Back in those days, Kendrick, or K-Dot as he was known, was said to be banging with the Westside Pyru hard. Some even claimed he caught a body. In fact, there's a Reddit post from someone who claimed to be a West Coast local saying, quote, Kendrick allegedly knocked somebody down in 2007. It didn't happen, allegedly it did. It's a rumor, but allegedly he was active. Rap saved him at 17. Now, while this is all alleged, it's pretty clear that Kendrick made it out of that life. To this day, K-Dot tries to pull his friend fans away from the street life, but some weren't so lucky. Just after midnight on June 13, 2007 in Compton, California, officers from the LAPD Southwest Division responded to a domestic violence call on East 120th Street, just about 5 minutes from Kendrick's house. There, they found his good friend DT allegedly holding a 10-inch knife. According to police, DT charged at them and the officers opened fire, killing him instantly. Kendrick reflected on this, saying, "It never really quite added up, but here's the crazy thing. Normally, when we find out somebody got K-worded, the first thing we say is who did it, where we gotta go. It's a gang altercation. But this time, it was the police, the biggest gang in California. You never win against them." As a teenager, Kendrick says most of his interactions with the police were not good at all. There were a few good officers actually protecting the community, but then you had the ones from the valley. They never met me in their life. But since I'm a kid in basketball shorts and a white tee, they want to slam me on the hood of the car. Kendrick also recounts 2 occasions when police pulled guns on him. The first was when he was 17, cruising around Compton with his friend Moose in a flashy green Camaro. The cops pulled them over, and when Moose couldn't find his license fast enough, the cops pulled a gun. He literally put the gun to my boy's head, Kendrick recalls. I remember driving off in silence, feeling violated, and him being so angry a tear dropped from his eye. The second time is a bit murkier. Kendrick won't say what he and his friends were up to, only that the cops drew their guns and they ran. We was in the wrong, he admits, but we were just kids. It's not worth pulling your gun over, especially when we were running away. These experiences were not limited to Kendrick. His uncles were also Compton Crips, heavily involved in the streets. One of his uncles did a 15-year stretch for robbery, and another is currently locked up for the same. His uncle Tony was shot in the head at a burger stand when Kendrick was a boy. It's safe to say Kendrick was surrounded by gangs and violence most of his life, and he still has a close relationship with many of the people he ran with as a kid. But let's dive deeper into what these ties really mean when it comes to Kendrick Lamar and the Westside Pyrus. There's no doubt Kendrick Lamar grew up right in the thick of Westside Pyru territory in Compton, California. His closest friends were Westside Pyrus, and it was not unusual to see him rolling with them throughout the city. He often hints at this in his music. For instance, in The Art of Peer Pressure, he says, "We saw a guy in colors we didn't like and we started interrogating." But let's get one thing straight. About 99% of locals are color banging purely off affiliation. Once you start doing that, the other side see you as the same enemy. So whether Kendrick was an official member or not, he was heavily tied to the game. Kendrick was also a product of a specific time and place, a city and era where violence was commonplace and poverty levels were almost unimaginable for many people who didn't live in it. In the same Rolling Stone interview mentioned earlier, Kendrick says, quote, "Everyone knows Kendrick Lamar, who I am now. They feel like I have a whole bunch of insight, but in order to gain that insight, I had to come from this place of loneliness, darkness, and evil. Nobody knows that." Some locals, though, say they know exactly where Kendrick was coming from. In a Reddit post, one user says, "Cuzzo been talking about having a body. I think that's one of the larger contributors to his self-loathing and feeling as though he's unworthy of stardom, success, and even love. It's a recurring theme on literally every project." It's alleged that Kendrick wasn't just color banging back in those days. He was very active in the streets of Compton. Even after he found fame, he continued to rep his gang affiliation. For instance, he threw up a Pyru gang sign in an old video with Lil Wayne and J Rock. He constantly shouts out his homies, specifically Lil L Blood, during concerts, and there's the story about him pressing AD because he thought he was a Crip from the neighborhood, which AD explained in a No Jumper podcast interview.
You know the crazy thing about Kendrick, bro? My first encounter with him, he thought I was somebody else, bro. He low-key tried to press me.
Who?
Kendrick Lamar.
In the end, Kendrick Lamar is either a blood on the low or just deeply entangled in this Pyru business by affiliation. His connections run deep, and it's clear that his ties to the Westside Pyrus have influenced not just his life, but also his music. Kendrick Lamar is undeniably one of the most influential musicians of the 2010s, often hailed as a game changer in contemporary hip-hop and popular culture. His body of work has sparked a resurgence of social consciousness across multiple generations, prompting listeners to question the status quo and examine societal institutions more critically. During pivotal moments like the Black Lives Matter movement and the aftermath of the 2016 US presidential election, Lamar's music served as powerful protest anthems. American studies and media scholar William Hoynes has placed Lamar among other significant African-American artists and activists, recognizing his efforts to create a counterculture that challenges the racist stereotypes perpetuated by white-owned media and culture. Lamar's influence extends beyond just his lyrics. He's credited with revitalizing jazz rap and using using music videos as a medium for social commentary. This dual achievement of critical acclaim and commercial success is a rarity in the music industry, earning him the moniker King Kendrick from both fans and fellow artists. His Pulitzer Prize win was seen as a landmark moment, symbolizing the American cultural elite's formal recognition of hip-hop as a legitimate artistic medium. Eminent figures in the music world, including Nas, Bruce Springsteen, Eminem, Dr. Dre, Prince, and Madonna, have all praised his musicianship. David Bowie's final album Black Star was heavily influenced by Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, with its producer Tony Visconti calling Kendrick a rule breaker in the music industry. Pharrell Williams has also lauded him as one of the greatest writers of our times, comparing him to Bob Dylan. Lamar's reach extends to modern artists as well, influencing the works of Dua Lipa, Tyler the Creator, Roddy Ricch, and Rosalia. Lorde even regards him as, quote, the most popular and influential artist in modern music. Despite his immense popularity, Kendrick maintains an unconventional approach to celebrity culture. He's known for being notoriously reserved, rarely discussing his personal life in public, and generally steering clear of social media. His interactions with mainstream media are deliberate and calculated, leading journalists to admire his zen-like calmness and down-to-earth personality. Lamar himself has stated that he is deeply invested in his identity outside of fame, emphasizing that he does not crave attention in the same way many celebrities do. His lyrics, often filled with thought-provoking and controversial content, have led to both praise and scrutiny. Lamar's public image has also been shaped by various feuds he's been involved in. His high-profile conflict with Drake, for instance, saw journalists declaring him the victor, though some believe the win was bittersweet due to the intense accusations and spread of misinformation during the feud. Throughout his career, Kendrick Lamar has racked up an impressive collection of accolades. He's won 17 Grammy Awards, which is the third most by a rapper in history. Not just limited to the Grammys, Kendrick also snagged a Primetime Emmy Award, 4 American Music Awards, 29 BET Hip Hop Awards, the most any artist has ever won, 11 MTV Video Music Awards, including 2 for Video of the Year, 6 Billboard Music Awards, and a Brit Award. As a songwriter, he's even been nominated for an Academy Award and a Golden Globe. At the 58th Annual Grammy Awards, Lamar set a record for the most Grammy nominations by a rapper in a single night with a whopping 11 nominations. Fast forward to the 65th ceremony, and he became the first artist across all genres to be nominated for Album of the Year, with 4 consecutive lead studio albums since Billy Joel did it from 1979 to 1983. Kendrick's influence and power aren't just reflected in his trophy case. He's also been recognized in various Power listings. In 2015, Ebony included him on their Power 100 list, honoring leaders within the African American community. A year later, Time magazine listed him among the 100 most influential people in the world. Forbes has featured him in their Celebrity 100 ranking in 2019 and twice on their 30 Under 30 list in the music category in 2014 and 2018. Billboard has also recognized him, listing him twice among the greatest rappers of all time in 2015 and 2023. Complex named him the best rapper alive twice in 2013 and 2017, and included him in their list of the 20 best rappers in their 20s 3 times, 2013, 2015, and 2016. In May 2015, Kendrick's contributions to music and philanthropy earned him the title of a generational icon by the California State Senate. He's also served as a Grand Marshal for the Compton Christmas Parade and was presented with the key to the city of his hometown for representing its evolution. Kendrick's albums have also made significant impacts. Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, and Damn were all featured in Rolling Stone's industry-voted ranking of the 500 greatest albums of all time and the 200 greatest hip-hop albums of all time. Good Kid, Mad City was additionally listed among the 100 best debut albums of all time and was named the greatest concept album ever. To Pimp a Butterfly was ranked by several publications as one of the greatest albums of the 2010s decade. Damn broke new ground as it won the 2018 Pulitzer Prize for Music, marking the first time a musical work outside of classical and jazz genres was honored. Kendrick's tours have also set records. The tour for Damn, along with the Big Steppers Tour 2022-23, are 2 of the highest grossing hip-hop tours of all time. To Pimp a Butterfly hit a significant milestone in February 2023 when it became the #1 ranked album on the music cataloging website Rate Your Music, surpassing Radiohead's OK Computer, with an average rating of 4.34 out of 5. In 2024, Apple Music ranked Good Kid, Mad City as the 7th greatest album of all time. Meanwhile, Spotify crowned All Right as the greatest hip-hop song of the streaming era, with 5 other Kendrick Lamar songs making it into the top 100.